Hi everyone, I'm Travis. I'm pretty new to this, but I wanted to do kind of an introduction video to my page. It shouldn't take me too long, but I do want to do a deck breakdown in this video, talk about some of the things that I'm hoping to accomplish. So this year, one of my New Year's resolutions is to not waste as much time, be more productive, and so I'm going to record a lot more of what I'm doing so that I know how much time I'm spending playing this game, as well as who knows, maybe something will come of it. This month, January, I'm trying to get in top 1500 in Mythic. It should be a lot of fun, something that I'm really looking forward to doing. I'm trying to record as much of my games as I can. Currently, we're at Platinum Tier 3. I've been playing probably 2 decks to get to Platinum Tier 3, but I'm going to go over one of them right now, just kind of do a breakdown, and hopefully you guys enjoy them. Here we go. Alrighty then. So, this deck is called Selesnya Company, or Selesnya CoCo for Collected Company. This deck, currently after 20 games, it was at exactly 80% win percentage. It's been doing really, really well. I really like it against the field, actually. It's not often that I have a deck that I say I would take against the field, and this is one that I think against most of the decks that are played in Historic, this deck is going to win 90% of the time. 80% is what it says statistically, so pretty high win percentage. I have games against Altai, I have games against Jund, I have games against Goblins. I love this deck. It's very consistent, it's very fun. So I'm going to just do a quick breakdown of why I chose some of the cards in the deck, and hopefully this will help someone out there who might want to play something like this. So first of all, Collected Company is a really, really fun card. Most of the decks that you're going to see it in is creature decks. So Collected Company is 3 and a green. It's instant speed. It says look at the top 6 cards of your library. Put up to 2 creature cards with converted mana cost 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So this is a really fun card. Lets you put things on the battlefield, get that value. And so your creatures are going to want to do something when they enter the battlefield. They're going to want to impact the state of the board, be aggressive or be defensive. Now, a lot of that interacts with each other and crosses over, but that's generally what you're trying to do. And so we'll start. I always like to start with the land base in these type of videos. So this land base is very straightforward. It's 4 of all of the lands, 4 plains, 4 forests, 4 pathways, 4 Sunpillow Groves, 4 Temple Gardens. So you're only running 20 basic lands, or 20 lands, and then you have 4 kind of lands in Kazandu Valley, which is a double Motoface card, and we'll get to that in a minute. But really low converted mana cost. The highest thing we're trying to cast is this, the Great Henge, and the majority of the time we're going to cast this for 4. And so oftentimes you're going to be curving out 4 mana. That's all you need. So 20 lands hits it almost always for this style of deck. But let's go to the 1-drop slot. So we got Llanowar Elves, 1/1/1, tap, add a green. Really good. Ramp card, lets you play a lot of stuff early. And it has good synergy with a card at the 3-drop slot. I run 2 Charming Princes. Now, I'm going to say this straightforward so everybody knows. The better card is Tithe Taker. If you have Tithe Taker, run Tithe Taker instead. It's a better card. 2/1, it replaces itself, stops your opponents from doing instant speed stuff. It's a better 2-drop. I would run 3 of them main board, and I drop this guy too, but we'll get to why I like this guy in a minute. But Charming Prince has some good synergies with the deck. So 1 and a white, it's a 2/2, has 3 different abilities when it enters the battlefield. You can either scry 2 to help fix your draws. You can either gain 3 life, which against aggro red burn decks is phenomenal, or you can exile another target creature you own and return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step, which has some synergy with some mainboard stuff in here, which is why Charming Prince runs as a 2 of. I don't have Tithe Takers, or I really would run Tithe Taker at this slot. For Luminarch Aspirants, this is a cleric, 1 and a white, it's a 1/1. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So this helps build your creatures, makes them better, and it also has really good synergy with Collected Company and another card at the 3-drop slot that we will get to. If you are running the color green in Historic, and you're not running at least 3 mainboard Scavenging Oozes, you might want to rethink building your deck. Scavenging Ooze is one of the best cards in Historic. It can eat Uros, Croxes, escape cards. Pretty much, it's a really good card. 1 green, 2/2. 1 green, exile target card from a graveyard. Creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on Scavenging Ooze, and you gain 1 life. The life gain is good. Exiling from graveyards is great. Just a phenomenal card. It grows. Really good 2-drop. Really good in the format. Should be running it if you're in green, in my opinion. Now, we go to the 3-drop slot, and we have one of my favorite white cards they've printed in a long time. Skyclave Apparition. 1 white. It's a 2/2 Core Spirit. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent you don't control with converted mana cost 4 or less. This is a phenomenal card. This is one of those the card that I was talking about that does well with Charming Prince. Charming Prince can exile this. Your opponent gets the token, but then you get to get rid of something else. And oftentimes, the creature that you're going to exile with Skyclave Apparition or the other thing is better, and giving them just a vanilla XX illusion creature token, that's a better trade than letting them have that creature or that permanent. And so Skyclave Apparition, phenomenal card, 4 in the main board, very rarely comes out, just a phenomenal card. Now this is a card that has a lot of synergy with Elves and Luminarch Aspirant. This is Lovestruck Beast, 2 green, 5/5. It has a sorcery adventure called Heart's Desire. Create a 1/1 white human creature token, and then it has a caveat of Lovestruck Beast can't attack unless you control a 1/1 creature. Lovestruck Beast can't attack unless you control a 1/1. Well, Llanowar Elves can count as a 1/1. So Collected Company, you cast it, you can grab Llanowar Elves, put it on the battlefield with a Lovestruck Beast, and your Lovestruck Beast can attack without having to use its Heart's Desire to create a 1/1. It's the same thing with Luminarch Aspirant. Now this is a line that I think a lot of people would miss generally, but you can grab Luminarch Aspirant and keep a Lovestruck Beast aggressive and attacking, because this comes in as a 1/1, and then you can put a counter on a Lovestruck Beast or whatever else. And so Lovestruck Beast does really well with Luminarch Aspirant and Llanowar Elves as an aggressive creature. Next, I run one of main board Ronos the Indomitable, and the reason I do this is because he can give other creatures trample. So he is a 2 green, 2 and a green, 5/5, God, Death Touch, and Indestructible. He can't attack or block unless you control another creature with Power 4 or greater. We have a lot of cards in this deck that Power 4 or greater almost every turn. So very rarely is he not going to be able to block or attack. And then he has this ability. 2 and a green, another target creature gets +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. Oftentimes I found with this particular deck is you have the creatures, they're big, but your opponent can trade and just chunk block for days, and if they get good cards that deal with your board state or slow you down and get ahead, it's very hard to come back, even with Collected Company giving you 2 creatures almost always. And so I like Ronos main board, game 1, really fun. It's a 1 of, I wouldn't ever run more than that. And this deck I originally built to be best of 1, but I transitioned it to best of 3, and I've liked it more in best of 3 than I liked it in best of 1. So that's why I play it in best of 3 now. Then we have Khazad-dû Mammoth and Khazad-dû Valley. This is your 4 other lands that aren't lands. This is a 1, a green, 3/3. It's an elephant with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Khazad-dû Mammoth gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So this can be a 5/5. And this card and Lovestruck Beast kind of play different roles when I'm playing with this deck. Lovestruck Beast to me has always been a defensive card. There are even turns where I'll hard cast it on turn 3 without using its adventure, just to put a 5/5 blocker on the battlefield, even if it can't attack. Because a 5/5 is really hard to get through. It can trade with a Questing Beast, it can trade with a lot of creatures out there, and aggro decks don't like playing against Lovestruck Beast. it's really hard for them to get around it. 5 toughness is huge. And so Lustruck Beast is kind of my defensive card. It kind of sits there unless I'm pushing to try to win a game. Where Kazandu Mammoth, on the other hand, is often a 5/5 when you want to be attacking, and a 3/3 on the defense. And so Kazandu Mammoth is that aggressive card. It's that card that you want to get down and hit your opponent with. I really like this card, and I would recommend running it in this deck. Another card that I really enjoy that I know a lot of people don't use in this deck is Steel Leaf Champion. 3 green. Seems really rough in a 2-color deck, but we'll get to why it's not in a second. It's an Elf Knight. It's a 5/4. With the caveat, Steel Leaf Champion can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Aggro decks hate this card. It comes down, they can't block it, it just deals 5 damage to their face. That's a 4-turn clock. 5, 10, 15, 20. Really fast, really fun. Can hit it really easily off of Collected Company, right? The next card we were going to talk about. Collected Company is really awesome because when you use it, you can just pull stuff, put them on the battlefield, and not have to worry about their converted mana cost. Steel Leaf Champion works really well with that. You're going to hit a lot of green. Yeah, 4, 8, 12, 16 green sources. 17, 18, 19, 20 green sources. It's not going to be overly difficult to cast Steel Leaf Champion. Believe me. Very rarely do you want to be casting it when you can't. There are most likely other plays you want to be making. And then 2 of the best card in Historic, Yasharn, Implacable Earth. It just shuts down so many decks and so many strategies. Played a Jund game earlier today that I'll probably post today also, where Yasharn came down, my opponent couldn't do anything, and I just outvalued, went wide, and it was really good against Jund Sacrifice. So, really good card. 2 green-white, 4/4. Elemental Boar. When Yasharn enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest card and a basic plains card. Reveal those cards, put them into your hand, shuffle your library. Players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. So this card just is really good at shutting down a lot of strategies. It's very, very good. In fact, if I was running this deck, or if I had another one is what I was going to say, I would have one in my sideboard. Just a one of, because this card is that good. It's so good against the field. I would run 3 if I had another one. And now we'll talk about my sideboard here. We got Archon of Emeria. I run 2 because I haven't found that I bring it in a lot of matchups. It's kind of a problem with us more often than it's a problem with other people. But it's a 2 and a white. It's a 2/3 flying Archon. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. Non-basic land to your opponent's control under the battlefield tab. So there are a few decks in Standard or in Historic that this just shuts down. Paradox Combo is one of them, where they want to be casting 13 spells in a turn. Or the Kethis Combo deck, same thing. Archon of Emeria comes down and says, hey, you get 1 shot to do 1 thing. And oftentimes with Collected Company and other things in your deck, it's not going to slow you down as much. I did make a mistake in a game where I cast it with a Great Henge available, and it slowed me down a lot. And that reminds me that I need to talk about the Great Henge. This is the MVP of the deck. Yes, the deck is built around Collected Company. This is the MVP. The Great Henge is 7 green. Legendary artifact. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. It says tap, add 2 green. You gain 2 life. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. So in a lot of situations, if you can get a Great Henge on the battlefield and then use Collected Company, you're going to get 2 cards to the 2 creatures to the battlefield. They're going to get counters on them from the Great Henge, and then you're going to draw 2 cards. So it's almost like casting things for free. It's pretty great, especially because this deck, let's look really quickly, it runs 33 creatures. So that's 33 creatures, and only 2 of them are misses with Collected Company. Only 2. So very rarely is Collected Company going to not hit 2 creatures. Here, it's just phenomenal value with the Great Henge. Great Henge comes out in a very specific matchups. I haven't had to bring it out in a single game yet, but it also depends on who is piloting the deck you're playing against. So that's Archon. Next card is Fairground Warden. This card comes in any creature game matchup. That I want to make this clear. Any deck that runs a ton of creatures, Fairground Warden is going to be your best friend. 2 white, 1/3. Dwarf Soldier. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until Fairgrounds Warden leaves the battlefield. Phenomenal card. It's not quite as good as Skyclave Apparition, where it exiles and then they get just a vanilla illusion back. Fairground Wardens, if Fairground Wardens was destroyed, killed, exiled, when it leaves the battlefield, right? They get their creature back. So it's not as good as Skyclave Apparitions, but Fairground Wardens can also get tokens, which is really good with Skyclave Apparition sometimes, where you're going to give your opponent back something, and Fairgrounds Warden can just bounce it. It can get sharks, which, sharks are a big part of the meta. You see Shark Typhoon often. So Fairgrounds Warden comes in a lot of matchups. Really good card. Kinjali Sunling. This is strictly here in my experience for the Goblins matchup. 2 white, 2/3 flying dinosaur. Creatures your opponent's control enter the battlefield tap. This just buys you time in the Goblins matchup. It's necessary because you can't always rush them down, but I have found that Steel Leaf Champion, really aggressive against Goblins. It's really hard for them to deal with. A turn 3 Steel Leaf Champion can race them before their Muxus. Because Skyclave Apparition can buy you turns. Your creatures are bigger than theirs, so they don't swing and get basic damage early, but you can swing and get damage to them and leave up blockers. But Sunwing is here for the Goblins matchup. I haven't found too much use for it, but it's a pretty good card. This is a card that runs main board in a lot of decks. Garrett's Harbinger. 1, 2 green, 4/3 beast. Has Hexproof from black. That's one of the reasons why. Black has some of the, if not the best removal out there. This avoids direct target black spells. Really good. Most people run this over Steel Leaf Champion. I wouldn't be offended if you did. Very good card. When it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You may reveal a creature card or direct planeswalker, put them into your hand, put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is like an extra card draw if it deals damage. Oftentimes people are just going to throw things in front of it, so it dies, just so you don't get that combat damage in that card draw. Not always the best decision on their part, but Garrett's Harbinger can do a lot in a game to win. Very good card. Next, we got Knight of Autumn. Now, the reason I run Knight of Autumn is because of the enter the battlefield ability. You could run Thrashing Bronodon here for similar reasons if you don't have the rare wild cards. But Knight of Autumn, 1 green, white, 2/1, Dryad Knight. When Knight of Autumn enters the battlefield, you choose one. You can put 2 counters on it, make it 4/3. You can destroy target artifact or enchantment, or you can gain 4 life. Really good against very specific matchups. Blowing artifacts up is really good. Artifacts are a big part of the historic meta. You see them all over the place. Knight of Autumn can come in and blow up that really important artifact or something that's going to slow you down. For example, Grafdigger's Cage really shuts down Collected Company because they're coming from the library into the battlefield. Grafdigger's Cage says that can't happen. And so Knight of Autumn can blow up a Grafdigger's Cage so you can get your Collected Company back online. Really effective card. If you're playing against a Great Henge, it can come in and blow up a Great Henge. Or it can come in and be an aggressive creature or gain 4 life if you need that in the situation. I like situational cards. If you start watching my channel, the more I post, the more you'll realize that I would prefer to play a card that can do a lot and is very versatile versus a card that is one-dimensional. Almost always. And then Vivian Monsters Advocate rounds out my sideboard. I run 2 copies. 3 2 greens, comes in with 3 loyalty. It says you can look at the top card of your library anytime, and you can cast creature spells from the top of your library. This is really good in a creature deck. Phenomenal, in fact, in a creature deck where most of the cards off the top of your library are going to be creatures. You get this down, you can make 3/3s with its plus ability, with Vigilance Reach or Trample counters. You can use the value of casting a creature to go find a creature with less converted mana cost. So, for example, a -2 situation with Vivian is you could cast a Lovestruck Beast, or -2 to Vivian first. Start there. Cast a Lovestruck Beast. Go find a Luminarch Aspirant, and then you can put a counter on the Lovestruck Beast, and suddenly it's a 6/6, and if you have a Great Henge in your hand, The next turn, you go to combat first, put the counter on the Love Struck Beast, and then you can cast a Great Henge for 2 green mana. Really fun lines. This whole deck is about synergy. It's about how the cards interact and work with each other to help you get the dubs. I've recorded a lot of games with this particular deck that I will start to post as I try to make my run to that top 1500 in Mythic. I want a number by my name. But that is the breakdown of one of the decks that I'm using to try to get to Mythic, to try to get to Mythic and try to get qualified, be in that top 1500 if possible. This will be one of the fun ones. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. In the comments, leave any questions that you have, and hopefully this will be a great new year. Thanks for joining me.